Now I can't figure it out. If y'all are the chosen ones, shouldn't y'all be obeying better than me? I mean, I even try to keep the fourth commandment. Try to keep the Sabbath day holy. I've spent many of hours trying to figure out which is the right Sabbath day, because we know that old Catholic Church, something a little fishy about them, don't we? With that white Jesus. I mean, here's a white guy telling you black people that your Messiah is not a long-haired white European guy. Your Messiah is Hebrew, my darker-skinned brothers and sisters. When are you guys going to wake up and become kings and queens?
All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, which is to say in the Paleo Hebrew, Yahweh, which is the name of our Heavenly Father, meaning He is, and that is who the world ignorantly calls God. Bahashem, meaning in the name. Yahweh Shai, meaning He is our salvation, and that is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, a so-called black man, who, by the way, only came for the Israelites, which brings us to our discussion / topic this afternoon, okay? Because the video you saw was presumably of an Edomite cowboy who presented the question, when are we, the Hebrews, going to keep the Sabbath correctly? All right, but little did he know he could potentially be an Israelite, all right, because it's not based on your outward appearance, okay? Because why? We've been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, throughout all nations, all right? So it's not based on your looks. Just by looking at someone, you can't tell if that's an Israelite or not, or Edomite or not, or a Moabite or any other nation, all right? But we're talking about particular the Israelites, all right? Because he says it as if he knows for certain he's an Edomite, okay? So his question is, when do he keep the Sabbath, all right? Now, I'm assuming he's referring to the 6th day you labor and the 7th day you rest Sabbath, okay? And then at the end of his video, he says we're kings and queens. Well, there aren't any queens in Israel, okay? You have kings and priests and princesses, but there are no queens, okay? That's another thing you have to get right. So to my understanding, we keep the Sabbath the way it's spoken of in the Bible, which is 6 days we work or labor, and on the 7th day we rest, all right? And it has to be a continuously cycle, all right? There cannot be any breaks in between, all right? And some people refer to it as Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, although it has a pagan or Roman name attached to it, okay? My understanding is that that's the way you keep it. 6 days you labor and the 7th day you rest, okay? Now, if I'm wrong or incorrect and someone can show me irrefutable evidence, then I'll stand correct, okay? But as I currently understand and know it to be and was showed is that 6 days you labor and the 7th day you rest, and it has to be continuously, okay? It cannot have any interruptions, okay? And I understand the notion of people thinking that, well, how can we be sure that if that's the way the Sabbath is supposed to be kept, that throughout our captivities we haven't lost that continuous 6 days of labor and 7 days of rest? Whereas in the moon or the lunar Sabbath, you have a sort of idea or notion of when the Sabbath come in, because why? The moon resets itself every month, all right? So I understand the what's the word I'm looking for? I understand the going back and forth, okay? But as I currently see it right now, as I sit here, I see it as a continual work day of 6 days you labor and on the seventh day you finish or you rest. Now with the way you keep it with the moon, you reset it every new month, okay? With the new moon coming in, those 2 days or that day is known to be as what? A transitional day or transitional days, okay? Which from my understanding, I can't find a transitional day written of or spoken of in the Bible. And if you can show me so, I will be more than glad and likely to see it. Now I understand they may use Amos 8 and 5, but from what I'm understanding, that's speaking on a specific new moon. And we're going to show you that new moon that is speaking on. That's a Sabbath, okay? So I went and looked in Google, and some say that, we kept the Sabbath in the time that we were in the Babylonian captivity, how they kept their Sabbaths. But I typed this in AI in Google. It says AI overview. I said that the Babylonians keep their Sabbath in the middle of the month. And AI overview says, yes, the Babylonians observed a day called Sabbaton on the 15th day of the month. So this was their Sabbath. They kept it in the middle of the month, all right? Whereas the Israelites kept their Sabbath every 6th day they would labor, and then the 7th day they would rest, okay? So the Israelites didn't keep their Sabbath like the Babylonians did, which was what? Once in the middle of the month. It says, yes, the Babylonians observed a day called Sabbaton on the 15th day of the month, corresponding with the full moon. See, they kept their Sabbath on the day according with the full moon, which is in the middle of the month. The full moon is not the new moon, okay? The full moon is not the new moon, all right? It says, while its name is similar to the Hebrew Shabbat, scholars believe the observance were very different, okay? And it shows that they were more in tune with the lunar-based cycle, because it says the day of Sabbaton was a monthly event tied to the lunar cycle, specifically the full moon, okay? Now we keep our Sabbaths or our annual Sabbaths, our Shabbat 1 days, according to the moon, okay? But our weekly cycles, they run independent from that, okay? They don't run according to the moon. Our annual Sabbaths, they do, all right? We use the moons for feasts, all right? What are the feast days? All right, there's 7 of them. All right, there's 7 annual feasts. It's no coincidence. All right, 7 representing what? Completion. Okay, and like I stated earlier, if I'm incorrect or if I'm wrong, and someone could gladly show me my error and my mistakes, I would be more than appreciative. Okay, so that I can repent from going off. Okay, it says lunar-based cycle. The day of Sabbaton was a monthly event tied to the lunar cycle, specifically the full moon. This contrasts with the Jewish Sabbath, which is a continuous weekly observance independent of the lunar phases. See? So we as Hebrew Israelites kept our weekly Sabbath based on what? A continuous 6 days of labor. And then the 7th day is what? Your day of finish, or your day of you rest. And in that day, we are given what we can and cannot do. We have to keep it what? Hallowed. Okay? Holy. All right? No cleaning, no cooking, no starting to kindle a fire, no gathering sticks. You can't have sex on the Sabbath. Okay? So we're giving ways to separate ourselves from these other heathens, okay? Because they had Sabbaths, but it wasn't kept like we kept ours, as we see these Babylonians. They kept their Sabbath in the middle of the month, okay? Now going into the Roman Sabbath, or how they kept theirs, this is, I wrote, did the Israelites influence Roman 7-day calendar? And it says, yes, the Israelites significantly influenced the Roman adoption of the 7-day week. So the Romans were influenced by us keeping the 7th day holy, by keeping what? The weekly Sabbath. And they sought to seek out the way we kept ours, okay? Now they put the names of their gods that they worship on the days, but nevertheless, it was still the same: 6 days labor, 7 days work. Now the Romans had 2 calendars under Augustus Caesar, all right, which was during what? We're going to get it in the next slide, all right? But the thing that I want to point out to you is that during this time, Yahushua was on the scene in the first century AD. So surely if we were going off and keeping the Sabbath as these heathens were, Yahushua would have corrected us. See? He would have went into the synagogue and he would have, said, you keeping the Sabbath wrong. Keep it like this. All right? Because Yahushua was back here on the scene during the first century AD when they found the fragments of this calendar that I'm about to show you next. Okay? So it says, yes, the Israelites significantly influenced the Roman adoption of the 7th-day week, especially through Christianity. The Roman Empire initially used an 8-day cycle, but the Jewish Christian 7-day week became widely known and eventually the standard. So yes, they had an 8-day calendar or 8-day market calendar. All right. But they soon picked up our 7-day week, or our 7-day, 6 days you work, 7 day you rest. They soon picked up the idea of 7 days. Okay. It says, yes, during the time, did the Romans have 2 calendars? It says, yes, during the time of Augustus Caesar, the Romans used the nundinal cycle and 8-day market cycle alongside the increasingly used 7-day planetarian week. See? So there was a 7-day week, okay, during the time of what? Yahushua. Okay? It says, while the nundinal week, or Nadium, was the traditional Roman market calendar with a market day falling every 8 days, the 7-day week, with its association with the planets, also existed and gained popularity during this period, right? Because we just read earlier that the Romans were influenced by the Israelites, okay? It's just that they put the names of these numbers to the day 1. They put what? Sunday, day 2, Monday, day 3, Tuesday, day 4, Wednesday, day 5, Thursday, day 6, Friday. All right, and a day in biblical terms starts at evening, okay? See, Esau Edom has it where a day starts at 12 a.m. But according to the Bible, a day starts at the evening. So if it's Thursday evening, at whenever the sun goes down, let's say it's Thursday, and the sun goes down at 7 o'clock Thursday evening, that day is accredited to Friday or the next day, just so you can see, all right? Because we understand the names that were put on the numbers of the days that we're supposed to keep is corresponding with the planets that the Romans sought to venerate and worship, such as Martes or Lunes and Saturn, all right? But it doesn't negate the fact that the order of the days are kept in alignment. All right, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. It's just that the Romans, they put their idols, or they put their planets that they worship in there. Saturn, for what? Saturn. Okay, so it says, was the traditional Roman market calendar with market day falling every 8 days. The 7-day week with its association with the planets also existed and gained popularity during this period, though it would not be made the official calendar for centuries to come. See? So they were influenced by our keeping of a 6-day you labor and work and a 7-day you rest. Okay? Now here it is. This is the calendar. All right? As you can see, it has the 7-day, and then it repeats itself. It goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then it starts all the way over from A. And then that's the planetarian calendar. And then to the right of that, what you see, you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. This was their 8-day market calendar. All right? So there was 2 calendars going side by side. The Romans had an 8-day market calendar, and then they had this 7-day planetarian calendar. All right? And this was all on the scene while Yahweh Shai was here, the 1st century. As it says underneath, this fragment of a stone calendar was found in the Sabinian territory of Italy and shows portions of the month of September and October. Archaeologists affirm that it belongs to the region of Augustus Caesar. All right, this is the emperor that was in Rome during the time of Yahushua, and was in the use between 19 BC and 4 AD. This is between the times when Yahushua was on the earth walking. It says, what does it say? I got to look at that book again, but the point was made, okay? It says in 4 AD, I don't know if it says it registered market days, Nudayin, by the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H, and the days of the week by the letters of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. See? So those are the days that were marketed for what? The days of the week, the 6 days, and then the 7th day. All right? It says Corpus Inscription Lateranium 1863. Okay? So that's the point. All right? There was 2 calendars on the scene during the time of Yahushua. You had the Roman 8-day market calendar, and then you had the 7-day planetarian calendar. All right? And this goes into a little bit more of planetarian week in 1st century. All right? The Sabine calendar. In 1795 were found the marble fragments of what is known as the Sabine calendar, or Fasti Sabini, in a place in central Italy. These portions represent the months of September and October in the Julian calendar. The experts in this type of archaeology finds have declared them to belong to the reign of Augustus Caesar, in that they were in use between 19 BC and 4 AD. In between that time, you had Yahushua walking on the scene. If the Israelites were going off by keeping a 7-day week, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, Yahushua would have surely corrected them, because this was on the scene back then. From 19 BC and 4 AD, you have the time in between those 2 days. Yahushua was on the scene, and this calendar was in use. And the Israelites influenced the Romans to use this calendar, to use the 7-day planetarian calendar. So if the Jews were going off back during that time, Yahushua would have surely corrected them, as he stood up in their temple to open the book and preach. Let's read that in Luke 14 and Luke 4 and 16. So this is Luke 4 and verse 16. It reads, and he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the what? Sabbath day, and stood up for to read. So surely he would have corrected them. He came in on the Sabbath day. All right? And read. Okay? Which we know now, according to the Fasti Sabini, that there was a calendar with a 7-day week planetarian that the Israelites had, that they influenced the Romans to keep, that during the years of 19 BC and 4 AD, under the reign of Augustus Caesar, that they were in use, and Yahushua was on the scene during this time. See? So why wouldn't he have corrected them if they were keeping the Sabbath wrong when he came into the temple to read? Unless they were keeping it the way it was supposed to be kept. 6 days you labor, and the 7th day you rest. Now, once again, I stand correct if I'm going off. If you can go into the scriptures and please show me and edify me, because I would love to learn, okay? I would love to learn, all right? If I'm going off, I stand corrected, okay? Because I'm not this individual that is beyond reproach. If you can show me through the scriptures how you keep a continuous 6th day where you labor and a 7th day where you rest according to the Bible, I'm all for it, okay? Because we even know when the Israelites came out of Egypt, they were what? Taught to keep the Sabbath by what? Manna. Where for 40 years straight, they got manna every 6th day. Double the portion, so they know the next day was the Sabbath. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the moon was out and about around that time. So why wasn't the moon used to what? Teach the Israelites. Why did the Lord send them a double portion of manna on the 6th day? I believe that's the book of Exodus 16. Is it 16? Let me see. I'm trying to see where it says the double portion. Come on, Esau. You messing up, man. It says, and I have heard the murmuring of children of Israel speaking to them, saying, let's see, we're gonna see where it says a double portion. Give me 1 second now. This is the thing which Yahweh commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, and omer for every man according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man from which his tents. 1 second. Here it is, Exodus 16 and 22. And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for 1 man. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. Okay? So the point is, they gathered twice as much on the 6th day, and they were in the wilderness for 40 years. All right? So this was a continuous 6th day. You gathered 2 double bread for the next day. All right? So I'm pretty sure there were new moons that came in within those 40 years of being in the wilderness that they could have used to what? Have, you know, the weekly cycle or a 6-day cycle. All right. It wasn't until the wilderness that they received the 7 feast days. All right. And Mount Sinai, when Moses was given the instructions. Okay. This is when the feast Sabbath, the Shabbat 1 days were established in the wilderness. Okay. the Feast of Tabernacles, the blowing of trumpets, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. These were established during the wilderness, okay? So I'm sure if this was the case that, we look to keep the Sabbath according to the moon, the new moon, which comes in on the first of the month, which the word moon goes into month. So the new moon is the beginning of the month, all right? We would have got double the bread then, all right? But the fact that we got double the bread on the 6th day, every 6th day, for the duration time of us being in the wilderness, until we came into the land of Canaan, okay? This is how the Israelites were taught how to keep the weekly Sabbath in the wilderness. The 6 days you work, and then on the 6th day, you get double your portion for the next day. This is how the Israelites was taught, to keep the Sabbath in the wilderness. All right. And they were also given the feast days, the annual Shabbats or Shabbat 1 days. Okay. Which they used the moon to keep, as it says in Ecclesiasticus 39. Let's go there. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 39. And like I said, if I'm wrong, I stand corrected. All right. Because this thing is bigger than me and you. It's about the truth. It's about striving for perfection. Okay. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected. All right. I'm going off. I'm bugged out. I might be bugged out, Maybe I'm far out there, okay? But this is just how I was showed and seen, and I haven't seen any, rebuke or rebuttal on this way I'm shown that I was showed. All right, so if someone could correct the error, I would be more than glad. All right. This is Ecclesiasticus 39. Is it 39? Let me see. It might be 40. It might be 40. 40, what is it? 43. Ecclesiasticus 43. And let's start at 6. Ecclesiasticus 43 and 6. It reads, He made the moon also to serve in her seasons for a declaration of times. All right. And it gives us that declaration in Leviticus 23. It says, in a sign of the world, from the moon is the sign of feast. It gives us those feasts in Leviticus 23, which we're going to look at. A light that decreases in her perfection, right? So when the moon decreases, it wanes. When it increases, it waxes. When the moon is going out, it wanes, okay? It decreases, all right? It says the month is called after her name, right? The new moon is the new month. Increasing wonderfully in her changes, right? When it increases wonderfully, it's waxing. When it decreases, it's waning. Being an instrument of the armies above, the stars in the sky, the heavens, shining in the firmament of heaven. See? So we were given the moon for what? Our annual feast. Okay, and there's 7 of them that we keep, and it starts after the what? The Passover, with the what? Feast of Unleavened Bread, coming in at what? The evening that the Passover goes down. All right, which is the 15th at evening begins the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right, it says the beauty of heaven, the glory of the stars, and ornament giving light in the highest places of the Lord. Okay. Now, when you go to Amos 8 and 5, this is a precept or a scripture, if I'm not mistaken, that a lot of individuals believe that justify on what we do in the period of the transition between the new moon, the transitional days, and the Sabbath. All right. This is Amos 8 and 5. It reads, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath that we may set forth wheat? So I'm under the understanding that this scripture is to indicate that the new moon is the Sabbath, and this is what you do during the new moon transitional days of 1 or 2 days. It says, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. Okay? Now, this new moon is speaking specifically about a Shabbat 1 day, all right? And particularly the blowing of the trumpets, okay? This is not a weekly Sabbath. This is a new moon Sabbath, all right? Let's jump there and go to Leviticus 23, and let's read it. And if I'm going off, I can't state it enough, correct me, please, all right? Correct me, please, from my understanding that I was shown, not personally, but what I came across and saw in the beginning of my understanding. So if I'm going off, just correct me with the scriptures. All right. This is Leviticus 23. And let's start at (23). This is Leviticus 23 and 23. It reads, and Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month. So this is a new moon. Month goes into what? Moon goes into what? Moon. In the first day of the month. So this is the beginning of the new moon. All right. It says, ye shall have a Sabbath. See? This is a new moon Sabbath. All right. This is what we're reading in Amos 8 and 5. This is not a weekly Sabbath, but indeed a new moon Sabbath. Saying what? A memorial of blowing of trumpets and holy convocation. Because why? All the new moons are holy convocation feast days. Okay. Now the weekly Sabbath is a holy convocation and a feast, but it's not predicated on the new moon. All right. It's predicated on a continual 6 days you labor, 7 days you rest. All right. These holy convocations, feast days are predicated on what? The new moon or month. That's why when you go down here, all of them have what? Month in it, something to do alongside the month. When we jump up to the beginning of this chapter, you're going to see that the weekly Sabbath doesn't have anything to do with a new moon. It's just a feast and a holy convocation. These feasts that we read, and I'm going to probably have to get it in the Blue Letter Bible, shows it a little bit more better and clearer that these months, these feasts, these 7 annual feasts are revolving around what? The moon, the new moon, or in between the full moon. All right, as what? The moon decreases, it wanes. Okay. So it says 27. Also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day. No, we jumped up. We skipped. Where were we at? 24. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets and holy convocation. Here it is, verse 25. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. So see, this is what they were complaining about in Amos 8 and 5. All right. Because why? They couldn't do any servile work. They couldn't work for money. So they couldn't sell. Let's go back there and read that. Amos 8 and 5. They couldn't make money. They couldn't deceit. They couldn't, sell the ephah short. Amos 8. Where were we at? Amos. Give me a second. 8 and 5. These are what the Israelites were complaining about, saying, when will the new moon, the blowing of the trumpets, the first day of the 7th month, be gone, that we may sell corn. See? This is why they was wanting the new moon to be over, so that they could sell corn, so they could perform servile work. It says, in the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. So this is why they was wanting the new moon to be gone over, so that they could what? So that they could sell, and that they could what? Buy. Because according to the blowing of the trumpets, they could not buy or sell. They could not do any servile work. You see? So this is why they wanted the new moon, the Sabbath, to be over. Okay, so they can get back to falsifying the balances. And it says what? To falsifying the balances by deceit. All right? This is why they wanted the new moon, the Sabbath, to be over, the blowing of the trumpets to be over. Now let's get this in Numbers 10 and 10, because the Lord, when he wants something done specifically, he'll tell us that, all right? As he told us in Numbers 10 and 10, let's check this out. So if all months were the same as this month, the Lord would have said so, because when he wants specific instructions done, he gives us that to do. In the what? In the way of the word. This is Numbers 10 and 10. It says, also in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, so the new months, it says, ye shall blow the trumpets over your burnt offering. So see, he gives us instructions what to do. And over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your power. I am Yahweh, your power. So you see, he gives us specific instructions on what we are to do in the beginning of our months, all right? He didn't tell us that we couldn't have any servile work in any other month other than the 7th month. And what? The Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, all right? Now let me get that in the Blue Letter Bible so we can see it a little bit more clearer. Give me 1 second. Now this is Leviticus 23. It says the laws of religious festivals. Verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. So here it is. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yahweh in all your dwellings. So this is a holy convocation. It is a feast, but it's not one to be associated or observed by what? The new moon, all right, or the new month. As here we go down here, these are the feasts that are. It says, verse 4, these are the feasts of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. All right. This is what we read in Ecclesiasticus 43 about the moon increasing for a sign of feast. These are the feasts right here. It says, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons, in the 14th day of the first month. Okay. You go into that word month, it goes into moon. It says, at even is Yahweh's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread. Unto Yahweh 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. And the first day you shall have an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. See? So you go on to see that these feasts are all what? Revolving around the moon. Okay, let's look at another one. One second. We did Leviticus 23. Let's go to the Day of Atonement. It says, and Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there should be a day of atonement. See, that month goes into what? Moon. Okay. These feasts are specifically associated or connected to the moon. It says, and ye shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before Yahweh your power. Okay. It says, here's another one. Yahweh speaking to Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this 7th month. All right. Once again, month, feast, holy convocations. If I'm going off, say so, correct me, please. All right. 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. On the 8th day shall be a holy convocation unto you. And ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. It is a solemn assembly. And ye shall do no servile work there. And see, it gives, when he wants us to have specific instruction, he gives it to us. Okay. So you see, months, these are the feasts. Now there are 7 feasts, okay, that's attached to the moon, all right? These are the feasts that we use. These are the feasts that we use to attach and use the moon to what? To observe, all right? From its waxing to its waning, okay? In the beginning, in the middle, and the end, all right? So these are the feasts that we are observing according to the new moon and the moon in general, all right? The weekly Sabbath is independently from the annual Sabbath, okay? The weekly Sabbath are the 6 days you labor, and the 7 day you rest was established from what? The beginning, all right? As it says, the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. All right. The Sabbath was established in the beginning. The annual Sabbath given to Israel was established what? In the wilderness. All right. And it was predicated on what? The coming of the moon, the coming and going of the moon. Okay. So as far as the cowboy question went, you know, if we the Hebrews, we keeping the Sabbath, how can we not be keeping the Sabbath right? We are. We keeping it to the best of our abilities, okay? All right, when we obtain more information, we apply it, all right? This is a walk, okay? And if you are Israelite, as you indicate that you might be, because you said you've been studying for hours, you're going to be looking as well, man, okay? You're going to be seeing and going through the scriptures and seeing how they add up, all right? So this was a little bit of touch on the weekly Sabbath and the lunar Sabbath, you know, as opposing to, you know, the lunar Sabbath, those feast days that are given to us by observing the moon for signs in the heavens, okay, as it increase in its glory and decrease as it's going out, you know. So this was my interpretation that I came to learning in the beginning. And if I'm incorrect, you know, I love for any, you know, brother that's studying to, you know, go through the scriptures and, you know, rebuke me. Okay. So we're going to pretty much, you know, and another thing I wanted to say, this is the Lord we're talking about. Do you not think that he could keep a perfect 6 day you work, 7 day you rest Sabbath? Do you not think that? As it says in St. Luke 18:27, and he said, with men, things are impossible. With let me go there and read that. This is Luke 18:27. Okay. It says, and he said, the things which are impossible with men are possible with the Most High. So sure, maybe with men, you know, in the eyes of men, they probably don't see that how you can keep a 7 day continuous, a 6 day work week, a 7 day rest continually. But with the Lord, it's possible, man. All right. So you don't think that the Lord could keep a continual 6 day labor, 1 day rest, Sabbath cycle going? Come on. Of course he can. He's the Almighty. All right. He's Yahweh. He is. All right. The Ancient of Days. Okay. So there's nothing that he can't do. All right. He made the world, through his only begotten son, Yahweh. He gave him the blueprint, didn't he? So why wouldn't he be able to keep a 6-day cycle, 6-day labor and a 7-day cycle, 7-day rest? All right. So, hey, of course he can. All right. And I understand you may be thinking, well, what's going to happen when they implement the mark of the beast, and how are we going to know how to keep a 6-day, we labor, and 7-day we rest? Well, that's where faith come into play. All right. We just going to have to wait to see. Okay. We just going to have to wait to see how it's going to happen. All right. He gave us manna in the wilderness, double portion on the 6th day. So we don't know how it's going to be. All right. This same cycle may continue up until the time of the missiles come. Okay. So it might be, hey, after the microchip is made mandatory, we could be out here within a week. Okay. So you might not have to worry about trying to keep the whole month or months. All right. It may be within a week. I'm just speculating. I'm just saying. So who knows, man? All right. But it says St. Luke 18:27. And he said, red letters, Yahweh Shai speaking, the things which are impossible with men are possible with the Most High. All right. So let's finish up and close out 1 Peter 5:8. This is 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. It reads, be sober, be vigilant. See, this is what we're here for. We're here to learn. Okay. We're here to get edified. All right. If we go off, we make the correction. All right. So, hey, I'm not beyond reproach. Okay. If I go off, I've been looking and seeing, because I understand the take that on the Julian calendar or the Gregorian calendar, it went from one day to the next. But from my understanding, that didn't interrupt the day how it was kept. Instead of it being the 15th and the next day, or instead of it being instead of it being like the 12th or the 13th and the next day being the 14th, it jumped a day or two, meaning instead of it being the 14th or the 13th, it was the 15th. But the order of the days was still intact. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. So as I stated earlier, if I'm going off and, you can show it to me through the scriptures, how it's feasible, I'm more than willing to understand and correct myself. All right. I stand corrected. Okay. So be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. All right. So stay in the faith. Okay. Don't let, just because you don't see it or have the understanding, deter you from falling out. Okay. He that endureth unto the end. Okay. The Lord, if you of the elect, he gonna show it to you. All right. If you don't get it now, you may get it once the society collapse and implode on itself. But you got to continue to do the work. All right. You can't fall out just because you don't have the understanding. All right. The Lord gonna give you the proper understanding, especially if you're the elect. You're gonna get it before the missiles come, even if you don't get it right now. If I don't get it right now, if I'm of the elect, Lord willing, I'll get it before the missiles come. Okay. So you just have to stay your course and finish your walk. Finish your course. As Apostle Paul said, I have finished my course, man. All right. Don't let your understanding or lack thereof understanding get you to fall out the truth. All right. Because it ain't over till it's over. All right. So be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. All right. So with that being said, pray some moments edified through this lesson. And until the next time, if it be the Lord's will, stay strong, stay in the faith. We're almost home. Shalom. Peace.